Greetings. Today we'll be going over the Forum, September of 1919, by Honorable Bert M. Fernald, U.S. Senator for Maine. Will nationality survive? And it is 2025, so it's safe to say nationality did not survive because everybody's walking around calling themselves white. Whatever ideals originally inspired the League of Nations, it does not appear to me that nationality was one of them. My own interpretation of the national spirit is not a theory of brotherhood, of socialism, of radical ideas, or supreme political wisdom. It is an instinct. Nationality is born, not made. Him stating that nationality is not brotherhood or socialism, he is in grave error. It cannot be coerced into allegiance of relations that may be forced upon it by philosophic arguments. It is not an academic development of education. It is not susceptible to other influences. Nationality is the man as he is born, not as he is made by intellectual pressure or other persuasions he may hear. These are some of the things nationality is not. What nationality is may be simplified by an analogy. The man without a country, a nationality, is a dead man no matter how long he lives. So a European man calling himself white in a land that's not his, that's a dead status. Who you are when you was born, you're born with a bloodline, a nationality. And through coercion of your ancestors immigrating to the Americas, naturalizing, becoming a white person through the United States caste system, white and black. The man with a country is a man rich in patriotic perception on his duties as a citizen, a man with love in his heart for the laws of the society to which he belongs. So when you're born, you have a nationality within your bloodline that ties you to a land of origin. Being born somewhere doesn't make you that nationality. I always love giving the analogy. Say two people that call themselves white in the United States moves to Korea and they have a child born and raised in Korea and all they know how to speak is Korean. If they walk around saying they are Korean, they will be laughed at as if they're dishonoring their foremothers and forefathers, because they are. That's the same in the Americas. Just because you're born in America, that doesn't make you American. You have a nationality bloodline that ties you to a land of origin. 9 times out of 10, those that call themselves white, it's either Ireland, Scotland, Russia, Germany, Cornish. I speak as one of many millions who have created a nationality based on the constitutional miracle of a modern world. Didn't he just say you can't make it? Now, if he's speaking of constitution, this is a U.S. senator. He's speaking about nationality and the Constitution. So anyone out there that's claiming to be a patriot, if you're calling yourself white, you're in violation of the Constitution. So in order to enforce the Constitution, you must have a nationality. As the 73rd recognition of the Declaration of Human Rights state, which was released by the United States in 2022, nationality is enshrined within the Constitution. So if you're calling yourself a color, not a nationality, white or black, you cannot enforce the Constitution. Therefore, these U.S. European states, which are the 13 stripes on your U.S. banner, 13 colonies, colonial, colonizing, that's what it means. Colonial colonies are colonizers. That's why your Federal Reserve note you call money has slave owners on it still to this day. Can treat you any which way they care to bestow upon you. You're calling yourself names that delude to slavery, white and black. Now keep in mind, this senator just said that nationality is something that you're born with, not made, but then he turned right around and said that he created a nationality because he's trying to stay in the Americas, knowing he's a European colonizer. Declaration of Independence. I am an American. I am constitutionally one of the enlightened beings of the earth. But he is not American, because let's go look up his last nomen. Early origins of the Fernald family. The surname Fernald was first found in France. Remember, he said nationality is born within you. It is not made. Then he turned right around and said he created a nationality, started calling himself American when his bloodline is from France. You cannot change your bloodline nationality, and that's a fact. You're born who you are. You are who your ancestors were today without doubt or contradiction. Calling yourself white, trying to call yourself American, cutting off your origins is dishonoring your foremothers and forefathers. And those of you that are Christian, it states within the Bible, honor your foremothers and forefathers so that your days may be long upon the earth. Americanism is the only national intelligence in the world worth living for. He better cling tightly to that quote unquote Americanism creation, because if not, then he has to go back to Europe as far as the League of Nations. Perhaps there may appear to be some egotism in this statement, because the nationality of a man born elsewhere will be equally superb to him. If so, then the spirit of nationality is an ideal that will never surrender its national flag to the academic colors of a flag of the League of Nations. Now, when you look up the League of Nations, you find out that France was one of the founders of it. So he can't even honor his foremothers and forefathers as far as the League of Nations. There's a lot of truth and falsehood strangely mixed within this article, but that's what we do at the Cornish Temple. We take and we dissect and we find the truth, the ought, from falsehood and lies. What use is it to declare that the Western civilization of Earth, with all its traditions of the white man's habits, here he goes, going from Americanism to white, his customs of education, of social law, which you see it today, it's in shambles, shall unite in administering an international confusion of birthright with the quote-unquote Oriental civilizations. The latter, a comparatively recent adaptation of the quote-unquote white man's diplomatic problems. But white is modern. I want to hit this part as well. Among the elements of nationality that has survived in me, they didn't survive because you calling yourself American. And I think in all of my fellow citizens of the great nation are the elements of self-defense against intrusion upon them. Self-defense is an instinct of pride in nationality, an impulse that leads us into war. To assume that any nationality can survive without the instinct of self-defense is to believe that the course of the moon and the stars can be changed by the wisdom of a man. Ain't that what he just said? He said, oh, I created a nationality and all this. That's what he's doing. Nor, to my mind, is a war of self-defense a dependable instinct. But recently it has demonstrated its glorious privilege in our own defense against imperialism. But in these days and times, you can't even go down the street to the store in your car without having to have a license, a insurance, registration, tags, etc. That's imperialism, draining you of all your wealth. The spirit of our own nationality blooms into splendor of heroism that has greatly strengthened it in the war with Germany. And why was they at war with Germany? Because Germany was demanding nationalism, blood and Bolton, blood and soil. War is despicable, or it is superb. Anyone that calls war superb are maniacs. Insofar as it is the outcome of nationality, insofar as it is not entangled in its purposes of diplomatic expectations. War is an inevitable condition of national survival, and peace is a victory for nationality. Peace is impossible without it. So now you see everybody at war in these days. Why? Because they're not honoring their nationality. Nationality brings peace when everyone proclaims their own nationality and everybody is equal in the eyes of law in their own land. Not letting a foreigner coming to your land say they created a nationality that makes them tied to that land when their bloodline ties to another. Before I close, I want to end out with the stateless persons. You have three choices afforded to you: nationality and international law. Discussion on the report of the committee appointed by the Executive Committee of the Society for the Study of the Status of Stateless Persons. Why are they speaking of nationality and stateless persons? Because stateless persons are ones who do not identify with their nationality. Nationality is of paramount importance to the realization of fundamental rights. You calling yourself white, you do not know your fundamental rights. And these courts and these so-called government officials, they know that. And this is what they do to you. And this is what they're going to do to you. As regards the problem of the present large number of stateless persons scattered throughout the world, even in the Americas, calling yourself white, insofar as they are long-term refugees, the solution of their problem cannot be sought first of all in the legal field. It is rather an economic and social problem. Remember, what did they talk about? Oh, Germany, socialism, socialism. Bad socialism. Yeah, because they wanted to keep you ignorant and stateless. 3 solutions will offer themselves after the war for the stateless refugee. He will either be able to remain in his country of refuge and legal absorption. That means that all of your rights are absorbed, you're taken advantage of. Or he will be re-immigrated overseas, and there he will be admitted like any ordinary alien immigrant, which is what you are in the Americas, calling yourself white because you're of European descent, who can obtain naturalization after a certain number of years, which naturalization, that's the annexing of your nationality and you taking on their status class of white. Or he will be repatriated back to his country of origin, and it will be incumbent upon the International Refugee Authority of that post-war period to see to it that besides economic rehabilitation, he will regain fully pledged nationality status. And that's your choice right there. That's what you choose, to go back to your land of origin, receive economic rehabilitation because your ancestors left their European estates and went to the Americas due to war, due to the hope of having milk and honey in the Americas and becoming an American. You're dishonoring your foremothers and forefathers. That's why I laugh when I see people that call themselves white complaining that, why every year do I gotta pay taxes on my land and taxes on this and that if I own it? Because you don't own it. You can't own the land here because you're not of that origin. You are of European descent. Now you go back to Europe, you don't gotta pay none of that. Land cannot be bought, sold, or transferred. Titles and deeds, all that's created from a feudal society that's colonizing a land. So continue to call yourself white. You will have social absorption. They will take you for everything. Again, nationality is of paramount importance to the realization of fundamental rights. The original definition of American are the various copper-toned peoples found on the continent of America by the European. And guess who you are? You're the one to this day flying that United States banner with 13 colonies, colonial colonization practices, and showing off to the world stacks and stacks of Federal Reserve notes with slave owners on it saying it's of value. You should be ashamed of yourself. The rest of the nations of the world, they are looking at you like ignorant fools. You're the European who's calling himself white, trying to hide behind that shield so nobody knows that you're the foreign slave colonizer that took over land all over the world and caused stateless persons. So in closing and conclusion, Fernald said, many of the immigrants have adopted our nationality and prospered in doing so. But this very statement denies his earlier philosophy. You cannot adopt what is born into a people. You can only conform to the social costume of a nation, not its spiritual root. And so what he describes is not the preservation of nationality, but its dilution, a transformation of nationality into a brand, a civic costume rather than a sacred inheritance. Fernald himself, of French descent, comes from the same European bloodline that helped conceive the League of Nations, France being one of the principal architects. Yet here he warns against it. Nationality cannot survive the grasping deception of diplomatic agreements secretly made. He feared the League would dissolve national individuality under the weight of bureaucracy and political compromise. Still, his own vision of America as a universal nationality plays directly into the very danger, creating a people without ancient memory, a state without sacred distinction, leaving them stateless. The article also reads, we may lose our enjoyment of nationality by assuming responsibility in the leaseholding of other nations. Fernald is warning that a nation that tries to manage or absorb others will lose itself. Stateless persons being socially absorbed. It's a lesson that echoes through modern globalization. When a state extends beyond its natural borders, it dissolves into confusion. He also states, the protecting agents of the smaller nations so that they shall no longer be hampered by jealousies from a survival of their separate nationality. But look closely, he says that as if it were an improvement, not a tragedy. He predicts a world where smaller nations are protected by the larger powers, losing their independence in the name of peace. A peace without sovereignty is simply submission in disguise. Indeed. Now, if we link this to the later writings about the stateless person we just read, we see the spiritual warning fulfilled. In the early 20th century, scholars wrote that those without nationality are socially absorbed, that they become shadows of the societies they inhabit without full recognition or protection. To be stateless is to be nameless, and to be nameless is to be subject to the will of those who define you. The condition of statelessness, whether through loss of heritage, culture, divine memory, is what both the League of Nations and modern globalism intentionally produce, a world where human beings are citizens of everywhere and thus of nowhere. Fernald contradiction is not just political, it is spiritual. He speaks the truth of nationality as divine birthright, then betrays it by promoting a manufactured identity under the same flag or banner. Nationality is born, not made. In this he speaks as a prophet without realizing it. For nationality is the spiritual memory of a people, the living bond between forefathers and descendants. When the bond is forgotten, a man becomes stateless in his own land, or getting sent to another land, a stranger in his own house. Whether European or Asiatic, the law remains the same. To forget one's divine origin and heritage is to fall into the condition of a slave, dependent upon others for identity and purpose. Will nationality survive? The answer depends on whether a people remember who they are. Nationality is not hatred nor isolation. It is sacred memory, the recognition that each people has a divine covenant and cultural duty. Without it, the League of Nations, the United Nations, and every global order that follows will only create more stateless souls. When a nation forgets its roots, it becomes like a man Fernald warned of, a man without a country, a dead man, no matter how long he lives. To live truly is to live as a nation, conscious of origin, law, and destiny. To honor our foremothers and forefathers is to preserve that spark of divine nationality that no league or treaty can erase. I leave you in love and peace and truth.